Good morning, everyone. Today we're joined by Sheldon Inwintosh, Chairman and CEO of 3D Capital. Sheldon is a well-known figure in Canadian venture investing, as well as having decades of experience, over 30 years of early-stage investments into companies, including disruptive technology and especially well-known junior resources. And I don't mean small little wins here and there. I mean significant junior resource wins, very well-known. We love having a platform where we can connect investors, especially new ones that may not have known some of the big wins that he's had in the past. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about some of those wins and pick his brain to see if we can learn a few things about how to spot those and how he was able to spot those. This is a very exciting chance to get to know a little bit about 3D Capital, how they approach investing, their philosophy, the thesis, and how Sheldon sees the market. So we're pleased to have you on, Sheldon. How are you doing today? And tell us a little about 3D Capital.
Okay, well, thanks for having me on. It's been a while since I've talked about the company, but there's a reason for that in terms of the timing of our evolution and revolution. So yeah, 3D Capital is basically, I'll call it a holding company for early stage, very disruptive businesses. And, the disruptive could be, we're involved in a project in mining in Malaysia that could be the richest copper mine in the world. So that's disruptive in my mind. But we also have been involved in for many years in AI and quantum computing, and not just because it's topical now, but what's extremely unique is that these companies are going to scale up at a pace that I believe puts it on track with some of the best stories that you would see on NASDAQ. So what 3D Capital basically enables is for the average person to indirectly, through us, invest in a company where we may get involved in at the seed capital stage, and we help manage those investments. We often help the companies as well, so we de-risk the investment, but it allows people exposure where they could be involved in companies that go up 100 times, and that's really the mandate of what we're interested in. That's the good news. The difficult news is it takes a lot of time, a lot of capital, and a lot of hard work. But we believe now a number of our situations, our companies, we have just under 60 investments, basically are coming into the point of commercialization. And that's when the market, we believe, is going to recognize their success and then ultimately basically recognize 3D Capital.
I love this model too, because you get this whole basket of the areas of interest, which are all intersected as far as I can see, and I view things, where if you're interested in AI learning or the Internet of Things, all of these incredible technologies that are captivating the audience, and also AI related, whether it's cloud or chips, it's getting tons of money. But those don't come about without the junior resource. And your expertise is in identifying, not just early, like you're a co-founder in a lot of juniors. Like this isn't just like early stage, this is the earliest of stages. And that's a very significant attribute and skill set that not a lot of people have. I mean, it's one thing to be involved in a win, which is always exciting, especially in junior resource, but you really had a lot of them. So, and I want people to, not to be, too kind of promotional or whatnot, but I always like to highlight the fact if someone has had that number to get them a chance to talk about, like, say, like, something like Aurelian, like how did you come about that? Like, what did you see in Aurelian resources that drew you to it?
Okay, it's going back a few years. Well,
yeah.
Basically I get exposed to a lot of things. People like to go to investors or value-added people like ourselves that have had a track record, because it shows that we know how to, we're business people and we know how to execute. And in that case, I recall that it was in Ecuador, And Ecuador was in a war with Colombia for 50 years, and then the war ended, and then you had all this sort of government land on the border that really was tied up in, like a no-fly zone, and you couldn't do anything with it. And this fellow saw that this was about to finally be opened up as ground that people could come in and explore. He stood first at the line, and we looked at the geology and we go, wow, this is pristine. No one's had a chance to even, get on the ground there. There's a lot of potential here. And so we were first mover, and then, I joined the board, and, a few holes into it, the rest is history.
And that I'll just pepper this conversation with a couple of those wins. So we might go back in time a little bit, but it's important because once again, it's one thing to be involved in one, and some people might say, "Oh, that's a one-hit wonder," but you've had a number of them, and I think that speaks to, and tell me if I'm wrong, the thesis that you have is that you, because of this track record, you get invited to things or have opportunities in all more than just junior resource, and a lot of different opportunities that I'm certainly not going to get offered, and certainly not someone who's retail out there that would even know is being contemplated as a possible startup or as a venture or anything else. And that gives people that edge, and they get to have that in a basket of 60 ideas in your one shell or this one company called 3D. And I think that's just to make it obvious to people, that's what's so compelling, is that you get someone at the helm who has access. And once again, like you said before, a lot of people aren't going to have that access. They don't get invited.
Correct.
So what right now stands out in your portfolio of, there's so many interesting sectors and themes that you think is really driving right now? Because you said maybe it was a little bit of a late start, but that right now there's a commercialization. You've got a bunch, but which one, like just to start off the conversation, you say, this sector here, I think this is humming, we're ready?
Yeah, so it's an interesting journey of one of our companies. It's called AIML. And it's out of my office here because I run a bit of an accelerator so I can help these companies when they need help, not just capital. And what was really unique about this company is that we had gotten involved in it with another application. And this often happens. Some of the biggest wins that you get into are pivots, where you're into something and then suddenly a light bulb goes on and we're in this right space, but we're not in the right little quadrant. And this company was measuring blood pressure and for healthcare, for self analysis, and we're developing a wearable application which was going to go to the FDA and so forth. While we were working on that, and it came out of the COVID era, the company stumbled on a company in Edmonton, in your province, and they had been working on a supercomputer to look at ECGs. And using AI neural networks, they made a big discovery. Anyway, we bought that company a year ago, maybe. Yeah, just about a year ago, last August. And what it has done, and we meaning the company, has checked all the intellectual property, who's doing what and so forth. And we brought in probably the best IP firm in America. And they basically said, this is a big invention. And what the invention is following. Everybody knows an ECG, you go a stress test once a year, you measure your heart and so forth. But really, the information that is shown in an ECG, in many cases, could be noise in the technology, or it could be actually the signal of your heart and what is transpiring. So a lot of situations that should be looked at, managed, and so forth are misread, or people die of sudden heart attacks and no one knows why. That is going to be a thing of the past. So what this technology does is it doesn't throw out, people know what's called signal to noise ratio, which means where's the signal and all the noise. And the noise is how information gets transferred and through hardware and so forth. And there's a lot of artifacts. So you're not really sure, is that blip your heart or is that blip the technology? So most companies have went and they said, there's a problem here. The signals are lousy. And I'm talking about all the big guys. And what they do is they try to get rid of the noise, but when they get rid of the noise, they're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. They're throwing out the signals. This technology allows, almost like an X-ray machine, where you got all this cloud cover, but there's stars behind it. We don't throw out the cloud cover and stars. We actually go through the cloud and actually find the signal. So this company now is starting to commercialize. I think you're going to hear a lot of news about it. And the ultimate objective, in my view, is they're going to be able to see within every heartbeat a constellation of data, measure it up. As you know, with AI, you teach the AI, it learns, it self-learns. That's what all the large language models are. So that, and actually the other point to make here is that there's an explosion in the wearable market. Wearables now, it's not just, yes, we know about watches, now there's rings. Ultimately, you're going to have a patch on your body and you're going to be able to monitor your continuous ECG. Now, not everybody may do that, but if you're an athlete, you will want to. If you've got predisposition of any heart situations, you want to. And so rather than go once a year for a stress test, you could have this Band-Aid on you. It measures your continuous ECG, and then we measure it against an installed database, and we can tell that if you have a certain signature of blips,
wow,
that could be a precursor to a heart event. So this, and I'm talking about this because they've got probably the who's who of cardiologists on their advisory board in Canada. The work's been done. Everybody's going, wow, this is game changing. Now we are going to be able to ultimately, their vision here is to take watches as well and make them medical grade. So your cardiologist is going to rely on it. Right now, the information to a cardiologist on a wearable is useless because of the noise. So they don't even give it any credence, and therefore they can't make a diagnosis or tell you that you're going to have a problem. So this is a very interesting company that's breakthrough happened all through neural networks, which is AI.
That's fascinating because I'm a huge fan of wearables. I have been for a long time, and I find if someone gets into it, like it kind of becomes addicting because I like numbers, I like to graph things, and I run, so I like to train in different zones. So I always know my heart rate zones.
Yeah.
And then it also will tell me, like, I know if I've had a bad night's sleep, but it'll say, oh, you slept for 4 hours and you woke up. And like, I think, well, what can I do to make that better? So I could see how in the future, and this very now future, is that if you're willing to share that data of your own health into a database, the future looks incredibly bright. Like we'll get all sorts of these types of things where it's like, yes, Andrew, you're putting yourself into a zone that's dangerous. Go to the doctor, go do this. And I mean, this is fantastic that you've got something, especially whenever people are paying a lot more attention to their heart as well, and the stress that they're under, whether it's at work or this or the just regular stress of life.
And it can serve anybody. So if you're in a remote community, you don't need a cardiologist there. If you're wearing, because this is all through the internet, all through the web, that you're wearing it, the signal goes to the cloud and someone is monitoring you and going, guess what? You know what? There's something here. We've just been triggered. Go to the hospital or do this or that, because many cases, the onset is impossible to see. And then next thing you know, people have an event, it changed their life. Some people don't make it. And this will get ahead of that.
No, I love that. And that is that intersection of not only it's a wearable, so it's Internet of Things, it's the cloud and data sharing, data storage, it's the AIs. And I mean, it's that whole culmination of the excitement of where we're actually seeing, because people sometimes say to me, Andrew, other than a large language model and having my kid have ChatGPT write an essay for school, what's actually being done? And then especially in the biotech and the medical, we can see these advancements, and that's incredible because that adds time, which is, I'd argue, the most valuable commodity to people's lives and their overall health. What other areas as well in this sector? And I'm going to tie it back in because people will say, Andrew, you focus a lot on energy and mining. What has this got to do with mining? And as I said at the beginning, you don't get to have any of that unless you mine for materials that gives you the power, that gives you, the chips, that gives you the graphite, and all these other things. Unless you have a direct connection to those and you have a logistic supply chain to them, you don't get to build any of these things to create your AI, your computer chips, all the other materials required to encourage these technologies.
Yeah, so we have a number. We just launched last week during the Toronto Film Festival a streaming network called VU, V, 3 E's and U, and it's based on a protocol called TODA. Now, when blockchain came out, everybody thought this was going to be the transparent way, immutable, trust, and so forth. But the problem with blockchain is it's not a scalable model. So these guys developed a TODA protocol, and they've now launching two, what I believe are multi-$100 billion businesses. And one is going to be this company called TODA-Q, which is built on TODA, which just launched a new streaming network called VU. And what it allows people to do is no longer have to go to the major streamers to pay subscription model. You can actually buy and rent your own piece of content from that without any initiation. And the reason that that is the case is because they have been able to eliminate all the middle people and scale the transactions such that the content providers, the people that produce these movies and documentaries and so forth, get 90% of the proceeds, and everybody gets paid out instantaneously. So it is going to be extremely disruptive. I can't tell you who, but they're working with, maybe the biggest, close to be the biggest technology partner. They've already got RBC, CIBC as financial partners, Bank of America, but Google's involved. I think that technology is also going to use AI, so you can search in the worldwide databases that they're gonna have more not companies, but pieces of content on their platform, probably by next summer than Netflix has today, and then it's just going to multiply. And you can use AI to determine exactly, because of data labeling, other things that you want to watch that are similar, and you just pay an a la carte fee, no subscription. The second company that's launching off the same platform, because this TODA protocol is infinitely scalable. You can do as many transactions a second as possible, and the cost per transaction is nothing. And KYCs, you mentioned KYC before,
Yep.
are done within 30 seconds to a minute. And that is a company called Hypercycle, which is launching the Internet of AI. They're going to allow all AI, large language models and whatever, which are all centralized, to speak to each other and get smarter. So it's going to be the Internet of AI. You're going to hear a lot about that. It's called Hypercycle.
Nice.
A third company I'll mention is a company that we've been backing for about 5 years. It's produced these headsets, came out of Harvard and MIT, that now basically can read and measure your electromagnetic waves in your brain. So if I have this headset on now, it's going to force me to focus on what I'm thinking about and doing. And if I don't focus, it's going to tell me. And
wow.
So this company is now just exploding. They did a big deal with Master Dynamics, and now it's probably one of the companies foremost and using AI in the brain field that the average person can use, and probably will help you arrest cognitive decline. So these are big ideas, but they're all commercializing literally as we speak.
Those alone are fascinating. And that's where I love to see open markets and money being applied to solve real world problems. And these are very significant problems that all of us are aware of. I mean, especially anything cognitive decline, and as well as the opportunity. I mean, just stepping back to this streaming platform idea, the opportunity for content is opening up, like you said, at incredible rates that a lot of people don't understand. They don't realize that it's going to be very possible for anybody who's just curious and pretty creative. They don't need to have Warner Brothers back them or XYZ back them. They can launch very quickly. You can make a music video with a sound with it. And if you're pretty good at it and you're young and pretty slick, you can do that like in a weekend, no problem.
Yeah, no, you've hit it. You've nailed it on the head. The company, VU, feels there's 420 million videos out there that have been created through YouTube and elsewhere, and creators around the world that can properly be monetized, but there's never been a platform to do it because the tech could not enable it.
This is fascinating, and I'm going to continue down here, but I want to remind people, because we get people that jump in, 10 minutes late or just now. This is Sheldon Inwintosh. He is the chairman, CEO of 3D Capital, publicly traded company. You get to own part of this if you're invested in Sheldon and 3D Capital as part of 60 different companies and ideas, stretching across junior resource, as well as all of the big disruptive tech that everybody's fascinated with. And this is, a great vehicle, because if you are new and you don't fully understand, well, I don't understand robotics and AI and all of these other things, you get a chance to have someone who gets access, who's had tons of success in certainly disruptive and junior mining as well, that normally I'm not going to get offered, or certainly many other people, because of the wins and because of being involved in co-founding lots of huge, especially in the junior resource sector, wins. And that's the framework of which we're looking at this disruptive technology of having a vehicle to tap into someone who's got 30 years of experience in capital markets. What are some of the other things? Like, maybe I could pull you back in time here a little bit, because I like to do this every once in a while. What, like, if you look at, say, next gen energy, because that's, I'm going to pivot from, say, just like gold or whatnot. Tell me about that, because that kind of branches into the energy transition. It's a uranium deposit. Tell us about that involvement, because that kind of shows that integration between the mining into this tech, and certainly everyone who's paying attention knows most of these billionaires, they've got a nuclear play as well. So I'll let you kind of tell us about next gen, what you saw there.
Yeah, so we actually owned the property that it was on, and we were approached by a group out of Australia that had ideas of really why this could be another Cameco, and we basically put the whole deal together, and yeah, that was a very good one.
That's a very big one, and I follow that one. I love it. I always remind people that that nuclear story is not going away.
No,
the
it's
amount
coming
of energy
into its own.
Yes, no, and that's a great one, and I'm going to pepper that during the conversation, because I want people to realize, once again, it's one thing to be lucky and fortunate enough to be in a massive win, and once again, I'm not saying like, oh, I had a bit of a pop in my portfolio. I mean significant wins, and that's who we're getting to chat with here. And you have this neat track record of being involved in a lot of big wins. And then that feeds the fuel of, then you're going to get invited to a heck of a lot more. So I imagine the stress for you is you probably get bombarded by thousands of deals, and you have to sift through what's real. And once again, what's the noise, and what's the diamond here?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the sort of the nature of the business. It comes over the transom every day, LinkedIn, so forth. There's a ton of projects. First we try to determine what sectors we think have the greatest operating leverage. And, now mining has come into it. It was not so good for quite a while. We have a company that we believe is going to be a leader in quantum computing. And it's a company we're immensely excited about that affects everything we're doing today. And every time we go into, whether it be another AI opportunity or quantum, everybody saw what happened when OpenAI gave Oracle a big contract a week ago, and next thing you know, the company, is up 300 billion in market cap. So we're in a very, very prolific field. And so when I say that, these things take time, but when they come into fruition and you get consensus in the marketplace that your technology is going to be a survivor first, and then maybe a leader, the operating leverage of owning positions in those companies is what makes a difference in people's lives. financially.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Oracle. I mean, if it's 6 months ago and people may have said, oof, Oracle's a name from the past. That poor thing is just hanging on for dear life. And the explosion of growth. This isn't a junior by any stretch. This is Oracle. If that can happen to an Oracle, imagine that leverage and that paradigm shift when you have a junior and,
Yep.
and it has an upswing. And that's where people become fascinated, truly fascinated. And that is the operational leverage, or the leverage that technology, and even a junior, like it can turn the crank on gold or silver. And that's, like you said, the market we're facing. It's fascinating that you get to be involved in that synergy of where all of these meet, and you have it all in one vehicle, which is you tell me, is it the only vehicle that's publicly traded on the market right now?
Listen, I don't know of any others. It's a
Yeah.
tough business. Most people that have started these types of things have not succeeded. I had Pine Tree Capital, which I exited, and we started it at 10 cents, and we exited at $26. And these types of models take a certain amount of stamina, and you eat what you kill. You're not getting rental revenue. There's no interest income to keep the lights on. You have to eat what you kill. So, and then you go through cycles in the market, which make certain periods of time non-financeable. And how do you survive through that? So
Yes.
it's what doesn't, kill you makes you stronger, as they say. But I'm not aware of, people have compared us to, like, Kathy Wood's ARC on a much more junior basis, because she'll get involved in a multi-billion-dollar disruptive company, and we're getting in, multi-penny disruptive company.
Yes. And that's also the added cachet, or the effect that you're having, is that it isn't just that you're placing capital and just saying, oh, we've made an investment, we're walking away. Is that you're actively involved. I don't know if in all, but certainly some direct involvement of insight, structure, whatever might be needed to, maybe even a deal, to add strategic value as a strategic partner investor.
That's you know what, it's a very big point. We don't highlight it as much maybe as we should, but many of these companies would not survive if we didn't really put in the effort. And for example, we like to do strategic partnerships because we believe that too many companies out there try to do everything themselves, and we're going, no, you just do what you do best, and do a partnership with someone else that might bolt on one of your solutions to your technology. Give them a piece of the action. Who cares? So what it does is it reduces the time to market to get your products out, and it reduces the capital you need. So we help a lot in a visionary way and a practical way of bringing these partnerships to the table that suddenly make these companies much stronger.
That's an interesting perspective to hammer in too, as we talk about you as a retail investor watching, thinking, oh, this is interesting, is that B2B conversation is exactly the same as well. You're getting privy to lots of funds, lots of institutional investors, and lots of companies where you can see that there's synergy here to go, listen, you would make a good marriage partner. Let's put you together. And that would be challenging enough, because I know with founders, with people that have an idea, it's tough to get them to give up anything. But hey, give up something for a percent of a big, huge pie always works out better than, hey, you've got a percent of nothing.
If you want to get over the commercial line quickly, those are the things you need to do.
Excellent. Well, I want to just let you wrap up because this has been a fascinating conversation, and hopefully we'll have more of them, because you've got a lot of commercial applications coming online soon, which means lots of news. And we wanted to introduce people to you. A lot of people that follow me from mining will know exactly who you are, but we try to reach out new people as well. And we love this synergy, because I love to cover, Andrew, why do you like mining? I like mining because you don't get robotics, you don't get AI, you don't get any of that. You need all the energy to fuel all that. You don't get any of it without digging stuff out of the ground. And here's someone who has been intimately involved in that for decades. And acknowledge and realize that connection very early, and has a vehicle with tons of interesting tech, which you'd mentioned before, that hopefully we'll get to dive into deeper down the road here. But tell us once again, just the philosophy, 3D Capital, what you see here, and some of the milestones short term, so people can see what am I looking for if I get involved with you and 3D Capital. What should I be paying attention to in news coming forward?
Yeah, I think that this fall, which is imminent, a number of the projects that we've been working on for between 5 and 8 years are coming into a commercial stage that is going to be recognized by the world. And not one, but we probably have a half a dozen at least. And every one of them, I believe, in my view, are multi-billion-dollar companies, and we own a piece of them. And so the recognition it's not going to go unnoticed. I put out on social media, things. We don't always put press releases out on everything because we own the interest in another company. And I encourage people, we have a YouTube channel and we interview many of the CEOs of founders of the companies we're invested in. So, don't shoot me, I'm the messenger. You can listen to them. But we are going to start to do more of those. And I can tell you that all we need is one, but we're going to have more than one. And you're going to see growth of value here that people are going to notice. So that's that's been the journey, and it's been a lot of work, a lot of capital, and timing is the thing that I can never totally predict because I'm often wrong. But it's no longer years, it's months.
Excellent. Well, you heard it here, everyone. I'm always thrilled to have a platform where we get to have someone of this caliber on to talk about ideas and to share some wisdom and wealth of knowledge. We look forward to having you back on again, Sheldon. Thanks for the time, everyone. Once again, 3D Capital. Check out the website. Check out the YouTube. Reach out to me. Send me a message if you want any more information as well. Happy to send you on. But thanks again for filling us in, telling us a little bit about some of the big wins in the past and some of these incredible companies and some of this commercialization that is coming very near term. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Andrew.
All the best, Sheldon. Take care.
Thank you.